Ukraine.
30 years of trust.
In the Kargil area.
North Ukraine.
In France, in Italy.
At Srinagar. Vishnu Shom for NDTV.
Vishnu Shom. Only on NDTV.
21 days in Kashmir. People have bombarded me, friends, with requests for an unfiltered list of things I saw and observed on the ground. Very special ground report from the line of control. There were some children who've lost limbs in the shelling. They're now India's smallest but possibly the most powerful crime family. Cough syrup has killed at least 25 children. Gaikwad sahab, aise mat kijiye. Suddenly people are wondering about the weaponization of India-Pakistan cricket. We live and breathe elections. You will not believe your eyes or ears when I show you what I'm about to. And for a country that has fought so many wars in the mountains and at
Good evening and welcome. Thanks very much for tuning in to NDTV. I'm Padmaja Joshi, and on every story that matters, the buck stops here. And today we want to talk about something that strangely not too many people have picked up on. A government event in Patna has turned into an occasion for further embarrassment for Bihar's Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. While distributing certificates to Ayush doctors, the CM was seen motioning to a lady to remove her hijab. Before the woman could react, Kumar is seen reaching out and pulling down the face cover. Now, as one can imagine, this has become a political flashpoint, not just in the state but across the country. Questions naturally are being asked. And these questions are not just about the Chief Minister's health, about why he's engaging in this behavior, but also why he is acting like this, especially around women.
ये अत्यंत ही चिंतनीय और निंदनीय है। आदरणीय मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार जी की मानसिक स्थिति क्या है, इससे पता चलता है। जिस तरह से उन्होंने एक मुस्लिम महिला के हिजाब को हटाने का प्रयास किया, सार्वजनिक मंचों से एक और महिला सम्मान की बात करते हैं, दूसरी ओर महिला का अपमान करते हैं।
वो किसी महिला के बुर्का नहीं था, किसी मजहब का माहौल था और मजहब के साथ उन्होंने छेड़छाड़ किया है और अब अपनी बुजुर्गियत और उम्र का हवाला दे करके उस मामले में सिंपैथी हासिल करना चाहते हैं।
देखिए, बिहार के मुख्यमंत्री नीतीश कुमार ने बहुत ही शर्मनाक और वाहियात हरकत की है। हाँ, किसने अधिकार दिया आपको?
Now, soon after the BJP dug up an old video of Ashok Gehlot from 2023 when he was Rajasthan's chief minister. This clip, shot during the CM's visit to a relief camp in Banswara, shows Gehlot personally removing the ghungat from one of the women who was present there. The BJP said this Congress has remained silent on that episode. It also questioned the party and INDI group's selective outrage. In fact, it wasn't just the BJP or JDU defending Nitish Kumar's actions as fatherly. Even independent MP Pappu Yadav chimed in.
इन्हें वीडियो जारी करते रहने दीजिए, जनता इनकी कतई परवाह करने के लिए तैयार नहीं। अब ये हास्यास्पद जो इनके तौर तरीके हैं उसको जनता ने पहले भी नकारा है। अब तो 25 पर आ गए तेजस्वी जी, अगली बार 5 भी आएंगे कि नहीं पता नहीं।
नहीं, हिजाब नहीं हटाया यार, क्या बोलते रहते। वो ठीक है, वो बाप बेटी के तरह उन्होंने कहा रे इसको खोलिए, ठीक है। वो बच्ची और बाप का जो रिश्ता होता है, नीतीश कुमार जी का जो एक भाव था या है उस रूप में, हाँ ठीक है, हिजाब हटाना हम इसको बहुत सही नहीं मानते, लेकिन आलोचना जो है ना सकारात्मक करिए। जरूरी नहीं है कि हर बातों की आलोचना नकारात्मक हो। निश्चित रूप से हिजाब नहीं हटाना चाहिए, लेकिन उनका जो दृष्टि और भाव था वो पिता और बेटी वाला था।
So Papu Yadav, who once used to be a part of the Congress, might think that Nitish Kumar's gesture seems like fatherly love. But here is the thing. There is a dignity of a chief minister's post, and there is a boundary that must be maintained by all in principle. Even if one was to think that both Nitish Kumar and Ashok Gehlot were making a progressive gesture against the idea of a face veil, a woman's physical boundaries, her dignity must be respected, irrespective of what religion she comes from. What is particularly interesting in this entire episode is that no one is actually talking about what that woman would have gone through. What their concern is about why a Muslim woman faced this kind of behavior. That is what makes one ask, is the real concern there about the dignity of these women, whether it be in the case of Nitish Kumar or Ashok Gehlot, or is this only in trying to pick up this episode to make a few points? You know, if these politicians are really serious about freeing women from the restrictive parda or hijab, their entire practice, why not start a government-backed awareness campaign across the country, make it into a mission, and see to it that the face veil is consigned to the dustbin forever. Else, is this only cherry picking for outraging, and that outrage is more political than practical? Joining us on the debate, Manish Baryar, spokesperson of the BJP, Karan Verma, political analyst, Sanjay Jha, also political analyst, and Priyanka Bharti, spokesperson of the RJD. Manish Baryar, I have to ask you because, you know, it is he who has been thrown to the dogs. Karan Verma, how can this be condoned? You know, for a chief minister to behave like this with a woman, what possible justification? You can't justify it saying Ashok Gehlot also did it. Great, Ashok Gehlot did it, condemn him then. Why are you trying to hide behind what was done by Ashok Gehlot?
So at the outset, Padmaja, the fact is that it was very clumsily done by Nitish Kumar. No two thoughts about it. This could have been avoided in a way, but to make it about as if, you know, he's oppressing them or that, I think that's a stretch. His intention was to perhaps say that, you know, a veil, a hijab in a public space should not be there because, you know, you have to face the world. It was a statement probably on women empowerment, but he did it in such a clumsy manner and he had no business pulling the veil down. So I agree with the semantics part of it, with the way it played out. That didn't augur well for him, and that I'm not standing with. But to make it about, you know, for Owaisi to come out, for Waris Pathan and their likes to come out and say that this is an insult to the community, this is oppression of the Muslims, I think I'm against that, and that is what should be avoided here. It was a simple statement, and unlike Ashok Gehlot, probably he would have very carelessly done that to a ghungat as well, which also would have not been the right thing to do. But his intention here was to send out a statement and not single out on Muslims. That is my limited point here.
Okay,
so, you know, let's not make it about anti-Muslim and Muslims being oppressed and all of that.
All right. So it should not be given the color it is right now. It may have been clumsy, unthinking, but to give it a communal color seems more political than about actual concern for the lady in question. Priyanka Bharti.
No one is giving a communal color to this. You know, Padmaja, if anyone knows Bandura's social learning theory, they will easily understand that actions and norms established by those in power, they trickle down, they are internalized by the powerless, and they are reproduced as well. You know, that activity which our CM did, and at that too, sitting at the post of chief minister, it has repercussions. It's kind of inciting violence against women. Will you not call it sexism? Will you not call it misogyny? When anyone forcefully tries to snatch away or pull my veil, I mean, anyone who takes burqa or anyone who takes veil, it's their choice. And if I don't want to, that's to my choice. And it should be respected. Everyone's choice should be respected. But if as a chief minister, he doesn't know what consent means, then it's really worrisome for the people of Bihar. And, you know, we have to take this situation and
aren't you making a political statement when you say he's inciting violence against the woman? And would then also apply to Ashok Gehlot when he did it? Look, principally I'm saying both are wrong, but if that is the spin that you're giving this entire episode, then automatically Ashok Gehlot also incited violence against that lady.
That's why I told you two wrongs cannot make a right. Nothing can be. And you are saying this, being a political journalist, you are saying this that don't make it political. It's not about being political. It's about constitutional duty that every citizen should perform. Any chief minister.
But correct me if I'm wrong. I did not see any of this anger, outrage, or condemnation against Ashok Gehlot, because if you're saying that this is inciting violence against women, I take that very seriously, and across the board, so should you.
What is the message you are trying to convey through that? What will people learn from their leaders? What kind of message you are sending to the policemen on the streets, for those sitting in bureaucracy, for those in political power? What kind of message are you sending to them? कि आप भी उसका बुर्का खींच लो, आप किसी का पल्लू हटा दो, और इससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता है.
No, I agree with you that the messaging is terrible. Leave aside the messaging. I think any man breaching the physical boundaries of any woman, especially when he's a chief minister and she's powerless in front of him, is terrible.
That's what I'm
Leave aside the messaging.
You know,
but what is the messaging that you are also sending across when you have decided to react to this particular episode, but Ashok Gehlot largely went unnoticed? Why?
Shouldn't I react? I mean, any woman, any man who has common sense and who knows what dignity of women means, what consent means, what choice means, everyone should react, and everyone should be angry about it. Everyone should feel disturbed about this incident. Shouldn't we, Padmaja? I mean, anyone will come and snatch away my dupatta, will take away my veil, even if I choose to wear it, if I don't choose to wear it, it should be condemned. And sitting at the post of chief minister, you're crossing the boundaries. What is the message you are trying to convey?
100%. I agree with you. You should be angry. My only point of difference was I wish you had been equally angry when Raj Ballabh Yadav raped a young girl and went absconding, when Ashok Gehlot, apples for apples comparison, did what he did just a couple of years ago. That is my only quibble with, when these political stories are dug up and political objections are leveled. That is my only quibble.
I wish you would have played, you would have played the video of Sanjay Nishad, minister in UP's government. He said, नकाब छू लिया तो आप लोगों ने इतना कुछ कर दिया, कहीं और छू लिया होता तो क्या-क्या हो जाता.
I'm very glad you brought that up, because that is exactly what I'm going to ask Manish Bariyar, and we can't play that video because it's another news channel. But Manish Bariyar, first, how can you hide behind what Ashok Gehlot did 2 years ago? How is it even relevant? Here is a chief minister. She is a poor doctor. The power equation is so unbalanced in that particular picture. If Ashok Gehlot did what he did, condemn him. But that doesn't make it okay for Nitish Kumar to pull off someone's face veil.
Good evening to you, Padmaja ji, and good evening to my co-panelists and all the viewers. I was listening Priyanka ji very intently and carefully. I think had she come here on this show as an individual, as a woman, I would have really appreciated that. But since she has come as a political spokesperson, the first thing that she has to do is to resign. And why she has to resign is because her leader, her party, whom she adores so much, Lalu, and I don't like bringing all these things. Personally, these are things in very bad taste. But then in 2014, when Nitish ji was going for a rally, he said that wo nayan sukh ke liye ja rahe hain. That was his statement. She should resign, because what kind of a party she is there first? Giving us all lectures about all this morality. Although I think this was an inadvertent error, in bad taste, bad optics. All of us agree. Nobody can justify what has happened, right? But at the same time,
if it is bad taste, sir, again, Manish Bariyar, this is not the first time he has made such comment about women.
Let me complete.
You will remember at the time when he was with the RJD, inside the assembly in Bihar, what a terrible comment he had made with women MLAs present inside the Bihar assembly. That time he was with the RJD, you attacked him. Now he is with you. So you are saying, it's bad taste, but he continues to be our chief minister. So why? Why do all of you just cherry pick?
Just let me complete my point. Mr. Lalu Prasad Yadav was vehemently against women reservation bill, and he used a very derogatory word. He said parkatti, and that is for short-haired
Lalu Yadav didn't say that. Sharad Yadav said it. He said it inside Parliament, and that was Sharad Yadav.
Statement made by him. If I'm not correct, then I would like to apologize for that. But I thought that he made a statement like that. Then there was statement when Mr. Giriraj Singh said he has number of statements against women, if
Sir,
we
it
start
doesn't
taking
matter.
it out,
My whole
he's
point
someone-
is he is your chief minister. He
No,
made a
I would like
disgusting
to come on
comment,
that. I would like to come on
advising men
would like
how
to
to
come on that
practice
first.
contraception inside the assembly. At that time, I remember, it was your party which went on the offensive and said that he is not just lost his mind, he is anti-women. And now he is your chief minister. Earlier, there was a furor when he put a mala around the neck of a lady. Now he has done this to another lady. In that case, it was a Hindu lady, so the outrage wasn't as much. But generally, don't you think that this is a recipe for disaster? How far are you going to take it, Manish Baryar? How much are you going to tolerate before it's too much?
No. I would like to clarify this. Sometimes these kind of 5 seconds clipping, and you also know that it can create a certain optics. But if you run the entire this thing, it won't really cause the kind of uproar it has. I said that it was a inadvertent error, but in terms of excitement that she was getting a job and there was a picture session going on, and therefore he must have thought that, okay, a picture is coming with the chief minister, and at that moment he did what he did. But I don't think it has to be politicized in a manner.
Manish Baryar, with the greatest of respect, I am sure as a learned person, as an educated person, you can hear yourself and how facile your arguments are sounding right now. What excitement! If she is excited, she decides to take off her face veil. The chief minister cannot reach out and rip that face veil off her.
If somebody knows his...
The excitement is hers alone, not the chief minister. He doesn't get to decide.
I think I will take exception to your words on this. If anybody knows Nitish ji for last 45 years, in terms of his deeds, in terms of his words, and in terms of his conduct, he is right at the top at this. So I think this was, when I said that this was a error of judgment, a small error of judgment, and that need not be really stretched that far.
Don't you think there have been too many errors of judgment, especially when it comes to women around?
No, I'm sorry, I missed you.
Don't you think there have been far too many errors of such judgment?
No, I don't think so. He has been discharging his duties and responsibilities, and very recently, if the people of Bihar would have thought that this has something to do with his fitness for being a chief minister, they would have not really given him the resounding victory he has. And we have seen that during his campaigning and during his work. And who knows better than him how he has
Manish Baryar, don't hide behind, he wouldn't have got a resounding victory. Many Bahubalis have also won in this election, so that's hardly a validation.
No, I think you are nitpicking Parmaja ji on this.
You cannot say that somebody has won, hence it validates every single action of theirs.
Just trivialize the victory of the people of Bihar by just saying about Bahubali.
Manish Baryar, Ashok Gehlot also won. Does that mean that his act of pulling a ghungat off somebody's face is validated?
I am not justifying that what Mr. Ashok Gehlot did. I'm not even justifying what Nitish ji did. Right? What I am saying is that it is being blown out of proportion, because you have to look at his, intent. I think intent is very important out here. In the context, intent is very important. That would be humble submission.
Context and intent unnecessarily blown out of proportion, Sanjay Jha.
Padmaja, first and foremost, I would like to publicly actually thank you for doing a program on what happened with the Bihar chief minister. I have been, by the way, both on the corporate side and the politics side, and I'll be very blunt on your program today. I feel we give our politicians a long rope. Politicians in this country are treated like demigods. Why? How are they different from any other normal human being? They ask for votes, we give it to them, and then they don't overnight transform into gods, do they? But that's the way they behave. And I'm telling you something, in the corporate world, if there was such indiscretion or outrageousness displayed by anybody, there would be very serious consequences, Padmaja. You know it, you are also part of a corporate media entity. I mean, and there's a reason behind it. One can argue back and forth till the cows come home. Why shouldn't politicians in this country be held to a much stronger yardstick? I mean, POSH cannot be just applied to the corporate sector. Why should politicians be an exception? I want to raise a more seminal question on your program. Now, it's very easy to say that, I heard the BJP spokesperson, very unfortunate that he calls it small, or look at his past track record. But that does not give you the license to indulge in something which some people will say is an abuse of power or authority. And you're talking about in a country where Muslims in general feel targeted. It's hardly a secret. Muslim women, in fact, you know the whole Karnataka issue on hijab. It's a statement on their cultural identity. Respect it.
Sanjay Jha, I was
Kumar,
so happy the way you spoke because you were taking an even-handed stance on this.
Yeah.
But the moment you brought in the communal angle, again, you are not addressing if it's about dignity. It should apply equally to that lady who was in front of Ashok Gehlot. It should equally apply to this lady who is in front of Nitish Kumar. That is my problem. That people, when they talk about women's issues, it is always through a political prism. It is only about what suits you.
Let me explain it to you, okay? Let us discuss the elephant in the room. We have a choice, Padmaja, that we do a debate and we choose to be politically correct, or we bite the bullet. And here is the point, and I'm going to be different here on your show today. I condemn the fact that a very senior Congress leader who was once my colleague, Mr. Ashok Gehlot, what he did with the ghungat with the girl in Rajasthan was deplorable. I'm willing to say it publicly on your program. I would like it if the BJP apologized for the behavior of their colleague in Bihar. This is the problem. We do not approach the issue with the sensitivity that the gender deserves. And I have an objection to that thinking. The reason why we need to talk about it in its entirety is because the bottom line is that we do treat certain people in a community with a lot more of condescension. As you rightly mentioned at the beginning of your program, right? When Nitish Kumar did it to a girl from our Hindu community, there was no problem. There was no drama over it. This has escalated because it is a sensitive issue. And you cannot ignore it. Bihar has seen one of the most ugly lynching murders over the last few days in Nevada. And Nitish Kumar himself refused to wear a skull cap during the campaign, if I remember correctly.
Okay, Karan Verma.
Karan Verma. Be sensitive about these issues. You can't ignore them.
So you know, at the outset, when my friend Sanjay Jha very eloquently put forward the seminal question, I was glad, as you were glad, Padmaja. But then suddenly, and that's what I called out right at the beginning, he made it about Muslims being targeted. Now that's the problem. Where have Muslims been targeted? If there's a law and order issue somewhere, you don't make it about Hindu and Muslim. I mean, if we talk about the hijab thing in Karnataka, if anything, the aggressors were those women who were from the campus front of India. It was the campus front of India that was almost literally fomenting violence and calling them shernis when they were resorting to the choicest of abuses towards people. So let's not make it about Muslim women being targeted. Sanjay, that's where you dilute the cause. I completely agree with you that the dignity of women is paramount, and what Mr. Nitish Kumar has done should have never happened in the first place. But I wonder where our friend Sanjay Jha was when someone like Priyanka Vadra, she's a woman, ladki hu, lad sakti hu, she welcomes Chaudhry Lal Singh in her party, who supported the rape accused of the Kathua, of the victim in Kathua. BJP threw that man out. Chaudhry Lal Singh is welcomed by Priyanka Vadra, and she says, ladki hu, lad sakti hu. When Shanti Dhariwal in Rajasthan says, ye mardon ka pradesh hai, yahan pe to rape ho sakte hain. Can you imagine this kind of rhetoric he resorted to? Why did our friend Sanjay Jha not call that out loud and clear?
Okay, very quickly, Sanjay Jha and then Priyanka Bharti.
Criticized Ashok Gehlot, but in those time frames, he never did that.
Okay, can I answer you? I would like to be unequivocal here, unambiguous. All political parties are guilty of actually treating women in our country with much less respect and dignity than they deserve. Let's not even debate that, okay? We are not debating that. If there are people in the Congress party who are guilty of transgressions, I have no problem. I'm saying it again. Ashok Gehlot is a very senior member of the Congress party. And when I have been in the Congress, he's been pretty revered. I have respect for him. I don't condone his behavior at all. I condemn it. Frankly speaking, if I was the Congress honcho, I would have put him in suspension. I would have. That's a truth.
But people
in
don't.
India, we treat politicians as if they're a different breed. We are making a mistake.
And let me also...
Whether it's Narendra Modi, whether it's Amit Shah, whether it's Rahul Gandhi, everyone should be subjected to the same level of scrutiny.
And let me also put this on record that I firmly believe both Nitish Kumar and Ashok Gehlot would never do it to a woman who was as powerful as them. Here there is a power imbalance and there is just no respect. It shines through. The lack of respect for that woman's privacy is shining through in all of these gestures, and which is why I really wish somebody could call them out equally. But respond to what Karan Verma said, Priyanka Bharti.
I wanted to respond to BJP spokesperson who said you should look at the intent. I mean, how would you look at the intent of Sanjay Nishad ji, who is saying बुर्का छू लिया तो इतना कुछ हो गया, कहीं और छू लेते तो क्या हो जाता है? And he's laughing. Did you look at his smirks? He's laughing at it. What do you want, Manish ji? That any leader in this country and anyone belonging to BJP had the audacity and has the impunity, कहीं भी महिलाओं को कहीं भी छू सकते हैं? आपके पास है क्या, मनीष बरियार जी? I'm asking you as a woman, I'm asking you today this question, and not only this. You know why I was...
No, let's play out what Sanjay Nishad said. Let me quote him also. For the benefit of Manish Bariar, Nitish Kumar is a man. What's the problem if he pulled the niqab? What if he had touched somewhere else? What would you have done then? That is a minister, Manish Bariar.
I would like to...
I wonder what the intent is.
I think, the standards one holds should be equal everywhere. And I do not really, like the statement if he has made, because I have not seen that statement or heard that statement. But I'm sure, it would take its due course in the party. And I don't think anybody is going to really condone that kind. But then a lot of times things get misrepresented. But having said that, I would like Priyanka ji...
None of this is misrepresented. I've heard him myself. None of this is misrepresented. Sanjay Nishad said it. He said it leeringly. He said it in a despicable fashion, and words are not enough to condemn. And frankly, everyone across parties should call out what he has said, just like they should have called out what Ashok Gehlot did. But the problem is, Manish Bariar, you will speak about it when Ashok Gehlot does it. Priyanka Bharti will speak about it when Nitish Kumar does it. Nobody will across the board, and perhaps nobody will speak when there have been members of the Congress who have left the party saying that we were mistreated by congressmen, we were abused by congressmen, we were treated to subjected to vile abuse and invective by people within the party. Then suddenly there is a complete blanket of silence, and that remains my principal problem. But last 30 seconds, make your point.
Yeah, my point was that, looking at Nitish ji's conduct, I think this was, and the clipping, which is a 5-second clipping, and we all understand that, a lot of things are being made out of these 5-second clipping. But at the same time, I do admit, and everybody agrees, that it was not a very great optics. But then,
But this is not about optics. This is about behavior.
Let me please complete.
You're making it seem as if you are the victim in this. That you had bad optics because of what the CM did. No, the victim is the woman in front of him.
I think it was stretching it too far, and it is very unfair on him, the kind of track record he has as far as doing things for women.
So nobody's track record can justify their actions. You may have been an amazing person, but that doesn't mean you do not respect the person in front of you. You may have delivered amazing governance. You can't say he was a great chief minister, so he can engage in fodder scam. Yeah. That can never be a justification. So let's be absolutely clear. And like I said right at the beginning, in cases like this, the power imbalance is stark. It is in front of everyone, and which is why it is incumbent on people who have a voice cutting across political parties to speak up on every such occasion, because otherwise you will not be speaking for women at large. You will only be speaking for those people who are convenient for you politically. In the fond hope that someday we will see that happening, thanks very much, all gentlemen and Priyanka Bharti, for having joined me. The other big story on the show today, stunning details are now emerging of how the Bondi beach shooting in Australia, where 15 people were killed by a radicalized father-son duo, was a tragedy long in the making. There were clear signs of danger that the Australian government seems to have either ignored or willfully turned a blind eye to because of their, perhaps their own political considerations. And the country had to pay a heavy price for it. Now it has been admitted that Naveed Akram and his 50-year-old father Sajid were inspired by the ideology of the Islamic State. Last month, both of them had travelled to the Philippines, where they are believed to have received arms training. The police in Australia have also confirmed that IEDs and 2 homemade ISIS flags were found in a car registered in the name of Naveed, and this car was parked at the scene of the shooting at Bondi Beach. But how did this indoctrination start? Reports from Sydney suggest that Naveed Akram was a follower of pro-Islamic State preacher Wissam Haddad. Haddad has regularly been seen and heard preaching about jihad on social media, and yet there is absolutely no curb on his activities. As recently as yesterday, he released a statement on social media talking about the Bondi Beach attack and almost tacitly condoning it. Now, the government in Australia is facing the brunt of people's anger, who are asking Albanese plainly, did your politics, your political correctness, and what has been called incompetent hand-wringing cost 15 innocent lives? And the bigger question before the world is this a creeping problem that no country can now afford to ignore? Are we sitting on a time bomb which we can ignore only at our peril?
There has been reports in the news about our 2 offenders travelling to the Philippines last month. I can confirm that they did travel to the Philippines. The reasons why they went to the Philippines and the purpose of that and where they went when they were there is under investigation at the moment. I also confirm that the vehicle, which is registered to the younger male, contained IEDs, but I also confirm that it contained 2 homemade ISIS flags. We continue to work through the motive of this tragedy, and we'll continue to do so. And I think it's really important that our investigators continue to be given time to do that.
Tony Burke, as far as I'm concerned, and Wong and Albanese, they're committing treason upon Australia. They're betraying Australia with the way that they've handled everything. I don't believe anything that he says. I don't think anyone does. And they're bringing unvetted people into the country more and more for votes. And I'm sorry if I'm not being politically correct. I'm just a person. This is not what I do. But I feel very betrayed. I think Australia should feel very betrayed by the Wong Albanese government.
That where things are so raw, the last thing I'm going to do is be in an argument with someone who's gone through that with their parent. And I was listening to the interview but while I was waiting to come on, so I've heard every word of it. Can I say the government never flinched on the principle that people have a right to feel safe and to be safe in Australia, and that anti-Semitism is an evil that needs to be stamped out.
And joining us on the show now, we have Tony Lauren. He's a global risk specialist, a former British elite soldier and founder of Zero Risk International. We also have Professor Rohan Gunaratna, renowned counter-terrorism expert and co-author of The 3 Pillars of Radicalization. Thank you very much, both gentlemen, for joining us here, because this is a problem that right now the entire world is looking at. What I want to start by understanding from you, Professor Gunaratna, is how does a bricklayer, somebody who was born and raised in Australia, become so radicalized that he kills his own countrymen?
In the case of Naveed Akram, who also recruited his father, his 50-year-old father, Sajid Akram, he was exposed to a cleric called Wasim Haddad. And Wasim Haddad himself was investigated by the Australian Security and Intelligence Service in 2019. And this Naveed Akram, who is 24 years old, he underwent radicalization over 5 years. And of course, he radicalized his own father, and he participated in the pro-Hamas, pro-Palestinian protests. He also associated with a number of other terrorists, of which 2 of them were arrested and incarcerated for sending people to Syria and also engaging in various extremist activity in Australia. So this entire family, we have seen the father and son, both of them got radicalized because they were exposed to extremist preacher, and also they consumed extremist material. So today what is important is that we dismantle the Salafi jihadi infrastructure, because extremism has become a global issue. It has spread everywhere in the world. Previously, it was only in the Middle East. And now, unless governments take decisive action to dismantle the extremist entities such as the mosques and the madrasas that are preaching hatred, then there will be a problem. And also, mosque and madrasas should promote moderation, toleration, coexistence. They must study about Judaism, about Hinduism, about Buddhism, about Christianity. So unless there is a greater understanding between the communities, extremism will spread and hatred will spread. And these cities like Sydney will become unlivable, because if anyone sees anyone wearing a Muslim dress or a Jewish dress, they will be attacked. So I think that leadership today is to promote and build those bridges between ethnic and religious communities. It applies to every country, including to India, to Sri Lanka, to the Maldives, to Malaysia. So unless there is an extraordinary effort to build the bridges, intercultural understanding, the threat of extremism will manifest into violence and, of course, terrorism. And we saw a very devastating terrorist attack in Sydney, and that's a lesson for the international community today.
Absolutely, and this really hits home for us here in India, because it's just been a month that we ourselves were subjected to a terror attack right in the heart of our national capital, and that terror attack was carried out by a group of extremely well-educated young doctors. So to see this happening in Sydney, one begins to wonder if now it's time to identify the root cause. Mr. Lauren, Wasim Haddad was mentioned by Professor Gunaratne. The Islamic preachers who are, working in the garb of, just preaching the religion. What kind of ideology is being perpetuated from there? Now, this young man, Naveed, was also associated with something called the Street Dawa movement. In 2019, he was apparently filmed distributing pamphlets. Are governments not being alert enough in seeing what's actually happening through these preachers, through these movements?
Yeah, look, I think that, first of all, I really kind of acknowledge everything that Mr. Gunaratne had said there. Actually, an incredible kind of insight there into just exactly what happened from the radicalisation point of view. Problem we've actually got within Australia, I think that I don't think we've gone deeper enough into looking at the actual movements that are happening within there. And look at the educational programs as well. We've actually got the politicians trying to actually push the drive on this to actually get cultural awareness and get some of the actual issues sorted out here. We've also got Asia being tried to be active and keeping an eye on individuals, but quite clearly this has left a lot of egg on people's faces, because these gentlemen traveled to the Philippines, and within a month they were kind of doing their own specific thing there, and then bringing this back into Australia. So there's a real concern right now that we're just scratching the surface, and at the end of the day, we haven't really got to the bottom of all the specific threat that does exist within Australia. And of course, everyone's focusing on the anti-Semitic side of things, really. But what we're not really seeing is the kind of the rise in the Islamic State kind of threat, and also what we've got really is the far right within Australia. Is gaining traction right now, and in some respects with the assistance or the connection with America. So that's always been on the cards.
Why do you think that they're just scratching the surface? Is it because of political correctness, or you think that there is a fear in government that if you went after certain elements, you would be seen as Islamophobic?
No, I think it's very much like I said this today on a news report. Australia is unfortunately being kind of classed as the land of milk and honey, and tended to kind of think that everything's going fine. And if you ask the average person about whether we would have a terror attack, they would say no, everything's fine, because we've been told that it's probable, possible, but at the same time, it's business as usual. So there's not a real drive, for anyone to kind of sit up and wake up and smell the coffee. This thing, unfortunately, has, and it's got the actual jungle drums, beating quite loudly now about really what could happen and what will happen in the future.
Why the Philippines, Professor Gunaratne? Why did this father-son duo? What are the linkages there?
Philippines south is called Mindanao, and for more than 30 years we have seen that extremists and terrorists have traveled to Mindanao for three principal reasons. One is to receive their ideological indoctrination, because there are many foreign preachers that preach the Salafi jihadi ideology. Second is that they travel to the Philippines to receive training, receive weapon training. And third is to get the fatwa, or what you call the legal decree to carry out attacks. So it is very likely both Naveed and Sajid Akram traveled. They were there for nearly 1 month. They entered there November 1st and they were there until the 28th of November. They went there for weapons training and also to receive the fatwa, or what you call the legal decree that it is legitimate to go and do this attack. We have also seen other Australian extremists who have spent time and traveled from Australia to the Philippines before. There was a man called Musa Serantonio that traveled before, who came to the attention of ASIO, the Australian Security and Intelligence Service. What I would hope is that Australia will do two things. One is Australia will better integrate its migrants and its diaspora communities. Australians are very generous people. They're very gentle people. They treat their migrants very well. But I think that it is so important that these migrants don't bring their problems in their home countries into Australia and ruin the stability and security of Australia. So I think that Australian government will have to investigate very closely who is preaching Islam and who is preaching extremism and take steps. Islam certainly, like Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, is acceptable. But to preach hatred, to hate others and to kill others, it is issue. And of course, it is not only Muslims. We have also seen radicalization of white nationalists. For example, Brenton Tarrant, who went to Christchurch in 2019, March 15th, he attacked 2 mosques. He is from Brisbane and he himself was radicalized by the right-wing ideology. So I think during this period in the world, security and intelligence services, law enforcement organizations, and political leaders should have a zero tolerance against extremist ideologies, whether it is coming from the Jewish faith, whether it is coming from the Buddhist faith, the Hindu faith, the Christian faith, or any faith. Only then we can restore and maintain stability and security.
Tony Lauren, do you find it incredible that here is somebody who was actually investigated by Australian intelligence way back in 2019? He was under scrutiny for 6 months. How was he allowed to get away as a no immediate risk? How? He traveled to Philippines, did no one notice? His father acquired weapons, did no one notice?
Look, it's actually, as I said, sorry, you go ahead.
Yes, go on, Mr. Lauren.
The Australian Security and Intelligence Service is a very professional organization, but you must understand it's a very small service with a very small number of very highly trained, capable officers, and they are also very much constrained by Australian legislation, the Australian laws. So I believe that they did investigate Naveed Akram because he was associated with another associate who was arrested and imprisoned. But what is important to understand is that Australia will need to improve its legal and policy framework to counter that threats, investigate them even more thoroughly, to have continuous, or what you call the rotational monitoring, and they will also have to alert. They will have to raise the specialist understanding of such individuals and blacklist people like that, so that when they travel, when they procure weapons, when they enter certain areas, that there is a greater monitoring and coverage. But Australia is a very liberal country, you know. So freedom of expression, freedom of demonstration, it is very much protected in Australia. But it has been used as freedom of hate. So one must be very careful.
Okay, I think Tony Lauren wants to come in on this as well.
You've got it. It's all nice and wrapped up and beautiful that you've just mentioned there. And we must do this and we must do that. But I think I'll come back to your first point, to be honest with you. We don't have the resources there. That's what's happening, is that what I've seen anyway is that the big call has gone out now to the government to produce these resources, to actually make sure that the police get the resources and the manpower. And you're quite right as well. ASIO is a small entity. The problem is that what was sold to the Australian public in a statement from ASIO anyway, was that these people were of interest. But what happened was they felt that the intelligence didn't justify it enough for them to actually be pursued further.
But if I may just interrupt for a second, is it only about political, logistical constraints, or is this also about political hesitation? Because Tony Abbott, for example, I was watching him yesterday, he called it hand-wringing impotence, that you simply could not bring yourself to identify people as a real and present threat and an ideology that was being spread in Australia.
Well, this is it. I think that's exactly what's being pointed right now, is that the people surrounding this particular kind of political kind of apparatchik are accused of that. And the thing is, I've been doing these interviews for many years. I've actually kind of covered the Link Cafe siege. I covered some of the other particular kind of touch-up points as far as terrorism is concerned. And it seems to me that we're just going around in circles. I just believe that that nothing really has changed. The gun laws are still the same. Okay, the actual immigration is still the same. Is that no one's really tackling these issues. And also, what I might add is, to come back to Mr. Gunaratne's point there, is he's quite right. We're living in silos still. So the communities themselves are not integrating. So we're not actually getting kind of true intelligence really from that particular perspective. Everyone's doing their own thing in their own backyard. So things need to change.
Do you think, Professor Gunaratne, this is only a blowback to what is happening in Gaza, or it would be very reductive to just say this is an anti-Semitic problem?
We have seen 3 waves of terrorism. The first wave started with Al-Qaeda radicalization, and I still remember in Sydney there was a mosque in Lakamba that was producing extremists because they were preaching hatred. The second wave of terrorism is by ISIS. It is true that Sajid and Naveed were driven by ISIS ideology, but we have seen that the third wave is largely because of the developments in Gaza. These preachers have again started to use what is happening in Gaza. So my thinking is this: Australia should take a very tough position. Don't bring the conflicts overseas into Australia, and restrict various activities in Australia pertaining to the conflicts that are taking place. Because if
but then, Professor Gunaratne, if I may interrupt for a second, the Australian government has actually taken a pro-Palestine stand. Then what explains the anger on the part of Sajid and Naveed? Your government actually sided with Palestine.
They sided with Palestine. Yeah, they did, and basically, Mr. Netanyahu, the Prime Minister Netanyahu, came out with a very vociferous statement to actually point the finger at Prime Minister Albanese that look what you've done. Okay, so he's almost accused them of actually inciting this particular kind of activity. So it's there for everyone to see, really.
Okay, Professor Gunaratne.
Mossad in fact warned the Australian government of this threat. Not this specific threat, but they gave a very general warning of radicalization of a segment of the Muslim community as a result of these activities. As you know, just a few months ago, there was a synagogue that was attacked, and there were other attacks that took place. So Australia currently faces a very sustained long-term threat by those radicals, and it is important for Australia to review the standards that they have used to class those radicals and take necessary action to bring those people in. And for example, the radical preacher who radicalized Naveed Akram, Wadid Hassan, Haddad, he's still openly preaching. Yesterday, he issued another statement indirectly justifying what Naveed Akram did. So I think that this radicalization activities should stop. If he is a man of religion, he shouldn't get involved in politics. Anyone who is doing religion and politics should be immediately investigated and necessary steps taken. So this lesson is a very important lesson, not only for Australia, but for other countries.
Absolutely.
Other governments.
Absolutely. And that's why, Tony Lauren, as a global risk specialist, what should be the 3 action points for governments worldwide? And I say this specifically as somebody sitting in India, where we have a very real fear that you have a middle-class, young, educated male possibly going down the same road that Naveed did. What should be the 3 action points for us?
I think one of the first action points that I can see really is that we've lost touch with the youth. And it's not really happening as much. We're getting a society here where they're doing their own thing and being groomed and being kind of pushed into certain areas as well. We just don't have the strength. We saw the actual kind of the social media kind of laws coming out that, under 16 now, they can't actually kind of fly through these particular kind of areas. Yes, there's still going to be kind of circumvention of these particular social media platforms, but, limited it now is a good step, I believe anyway. The second one really is to actually kind of get the parents engaged. I feel we've disconnected. The parents don't really know what's going on with the individuals themselves. The third thing really for me is, as Mr. Gunaratne said anyway, is get into the communities and start to listen to what's going on and find out what's going on. Don't be scared of the silos. Don't step back and think there's no-go areas that you can't go into because of fear or whatever. The police need to take the baton and run with it really and make sure everything's a lot better.
And finally, Professor Gunaratne, also time for some tough talk where you call a spade a spade. I remember at the beginning of this year, there were those horrible videos where you had 2 nurses on camera saying that we are here to kill Jews. Being nurses, they recorded that statement and it just got passed over after some, token action taken against the 2 of them. These kind of signs should be actively sought out by governments, identified, and the root cause should be addressed.
Firstly, the Australian government will take decisive action after this attack because it has traumatized the Australian society and it has sent a very clear signal to the current government. And I think that this momentum should be seized to do a number of things. One is, of course, something the Australians are very aware of, that is the impact of the social media. So social media is the game changer. So I believe that we have to take firm action against tech platforms that still keep extremist content. So Wadi Haddad's extremist videos, even you can access it right now and put it on your channel. So one is take decisive action to remove that content. And if tech platforms, if tech companies are unwilling to do that, investigate those tech companies and prosecute the executives in addition to charging them a lot of money. This is number 1. Number 2 is to increase the size both of ASIO and of ASIS. The security and intelligence services need more resources and more numbers to fight this because the threat of extremism is rising. Third is, of course, to integrate the communities in Australia. We have seen the Muslim radicalization is huge in Australia. For example, the Easter Sunday attack, a man called Jamil, who introduced the ideology to Zahran Hashim and others to stage the Easter Sunday attack, he was radicalized in Melbourne. Number of Australians have traveled to Syria and Iraq. Number of Australians, other than this son and father, have traveled to the Philippines to receive training and to have engagement. So this is a matter for Australia to deal with. When the terrorist group called Jamaat Islamiyah was disrupted after the Bali attack, where 88 Australians were killed, 44 Jamaat Islamiyah members were identified in Melbourne in Sydney, and in Perth. So I believe that it is time for the Australian leadership to take action, very decisive action, relentless action, and whether people like it or not, they will have to ensure that no extremism, no exclusivism. And even it comes to religious studies, they should teach all religions so that people will start to respect all religions. So this is not a problem that is Australia-wide.
Yep.
This is not a problem of any one community, but these are segments of community. And we have seen the radicalization is not only in the periphery. It has gone to the heart. So it is the rich, the poor, the educated, and the less educated that are now being radicalized. It is no longer a peripheral phenomenon, and that is why it has to be addressed.
Absolutely, striking right in the heart of our cities, right in the heart of our countries. Final point you want to make, Mr. Lauren?
Yes, I agree with that. And I think that we did a documentary on Jihad Sheilas, as it was called anyway, for the ABC. And we were quite surprised to see how many people, women in particular, who were being kind of radicalized in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And our own Raisa Hutchinson actually had a marriage proposal from Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and it went to that particular level. So at the end of the day, we do know there has been a problem for many, many years, but I think there's been a blind eye. And I think that the radicalization program is actually up to notch, since the last couple of events, and also the events in Gaza. No two ways about it.
Well, one hopes that this unfortunate incident should be an eye-opener. Radicalism simply cannot be given a wide berth anymore or swept under the carpet. Identify and shut down, whether it's happening in mosques, whether it's happening on the streets, or whether it's happening online. Professor Gunaratne and Tony Laurel, appreciate you joining us and sharing your wisdom here on NDTV.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
What does Sufism mean to you?
Sufism is about love. Higher ideals are more fascinating than normal love song or anything. Talk about Khwaja Mere Khwaja, Kun Faya Kun. It's all about higher ideals. I'm bringing the same spirit to Delhi. So book your tickets from District app. See you, Delhi.
What does, say, 11 years of Modi compare with in a global context?
He's going strong. Part of it is a weak opposition. Part of it is he's very disciplined. This is his life. It's why I've said that Modi is probably the most consequential prime minister since Nehru. And he's reshaped politics. He's reshaped the nature of the kind of master narrative of Indian history.
Across the country, he has tracked the pulse of power from Washington to Korea. Witnessed history being made in global capitals and conflict zones. Brought clarity to complex issues of national security and international affairs. Aditya Raj Kaul, covering international affairs like no one else. Only on NDTV network.
I just feel very privileged in the film industry, an industry that I'm extremely proud of.
I'm honored to receive this prestigious award.
I feel overwhelmed that the NDTV has chosen me for this very special award.
Thank you so very much. This means a lot to me.
It's a great honor and a great privilege.
Really blessed to get this, and I'm really happy.
This is one of the few moments I'm going to be humble, so please record this properly, guys.
आज का दिन सबसे पहले जो फुट सोल्जर्स जो प्रिजाइडिंग ऑफिसर्स जो टीम है उनको सेलिब्रेट करने का है.
And the NDTV Indian of the Year Award 2025 goes to
NDTV Indian of the Year 2025, 19 December, New Delhi. Ideas, inspiration, impact.
What seems settled for me is unfinished business. So I rewind, I pause, I reflect.
Welcome back. Prime Minister Modi arrived in Ethiopia today on a two-day visit where he was received with a wholesome cultural welcome at Addis Ababa airport. Ethiopian artists sang the Bollywood song Aisa Desh Hai Mera, underscoring how soft power often travels ahead of formal diplomacy. The video, of course, has gone viral, highlighting India's growing cultural footprint in Africa. Not just this, the Ethiopian Prime Minister personally drove Prime Minister Modi out of the airport. The visit will focus on strengthening bilateral ties, including cooperation in trade development and capacity building.
She stepped into the unknown and delivered a performance India is talking about. Meet the audacious Janhvi Kapoor at NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
Namaste, India. As you all know, I've been traveling around the world with my music. But this one is truly special. Something that's India. You all must have seen the magic that was created in Kun Fayakun. Now it's your chance to experience it with me. So book your tickets from District app and together let's create harmony of hearts. See you, Delhi.
You applauded the performance. Now meet the actor who defined it. Vicky Kaushal at the NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
Watch Rahul and me on his great show, Walk the Talk.
Coming soon, only on NDTV.
A sensational debut. New heartthrob of a new India. Ahan Pandey at NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
I don't sugarcoat. I shoot straight and tell you stories the way they need to be told. Unfiltered, unafraid, unmissable. That's how I roll. Watch me, Priyanka Deo, on NDTV World. Namaste.
A transformation you witnessed. Now, meet the force behind it. Jai Shah at the NDTV Indian of the Year 2025.
Pulling us into this country.
Good evening, welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the programme this evening, the police in Telangana have come out with fresh details on the Bondi beach attack in Australia, where it's now emerged that one of the attackers, 50-year-old Sajid Akram, was originally from Hyderabad and had migrated to Australia in November 1998. His Australia-born son, Naveed Akram, who was also involved in the attack, in which 15 innocent people were shot dead, was a naturalised Australian citizen. Sajid, the father, held an Indian passport per the Telangana police. Australian authorities have declared that this was a terrorist attack, with reports confirming that the pair were inspired by ISIS ideology. Relatives in India report limited contact over 27 years, with Sajid visiting 6 times, mainly for family matters. They express no knowledge of any radical mindset. They insist the radicalization had no connection to India or Telangana, where police confirmed no adverse record against him before 1998. Investigators in Australia did find homemade ISIS flags and improvised explosive devices in their vehicle, with the younger Akram having once been under the scanner in Australia, but he was let off. This underscores the persistent threat of ISIS-inspired online radicalization. Joining us now, Michael Feller, co-founder and chief strategist at Geopolitical Strategy, Sushant Sareen, Pallavi Jain with us, and Lev Aran, an Israeli journalist and columnist. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us. Sushant, the Telangana police confirming that the father had roots in Hyderabad. In terms of ISIS radicalization out of India. This is the latest case, but it's hardly the first. As somebody who's tracked this very closely, in terms of people with ISIS ideology coming out of India, that's been very rare. This is somebody who's probably been radicalized during his years in Australia.
Precisely. I'm glad you mentioned the last sentence, Vishnu, because he had virtually nothing to do with India. For almost 30 years, he was living in Australia. His visits to India have been few and far in between. Yes, he was probably influenced by the ISIS ideology, but it had nothing to do with what is happening in India. That is not to say that there haven't been people in India who haven't been influenced by that ideology. But again, when you compare with any other country in the world, especially the Western countries, because I've seen some commentary in some of these Western countries that, this is a third world problem. This is not a third world problem. Most of the ISIS recruits have gone from rich countries.